Buenos dias, everybody. Great and beautiful day. Hope everyone's having a great morning. Shabbat Shalom to those of the true faith. Gonna do a continuance here on the two Babylons and give you more references if I can find some that'll go with what they're saying. As you saw, came across a typo the last video, and I got my pen ready, my highlighters. So yeah, hopefully again y'all are seeing the similarities between all these religions. That somehow, well, not somehow, but it's easy to see how along the years people have created their man-made religions, because that's really what it is. Oh, and I had a comment. I saw a video last night. It was very cool. They're still trying to decode the Da Vinci Code, but a lot of this is in here. I told a guy, I commented rather, I said, y'all need to read this book. It shows, see, the video was based on supposedly there still being a bloodline, a lineage from Jesus and Mary Magdalene. One of the errors was that Magdalene was a name of a place, Mary of Magdalene. It meant woman of Tower, woman of Magdalene. I looked it up last night while I was watching that video, but they eventually told the guy on the History Channel that it was all a fabrication, which it pretty much is. The theory of Jesus Christ and Mary having a relationship and or having eventually a bloodline, that comes from here. If y'all have been paying attention, if y'all saw that movie and are catching on to where it's coming from, great. If not, watch it and rewatch these videos on the two Babylons that I already have on my YouTube channel. Okay, that stuff I commented goes back to the times of Egypt, Phoenicia, and Assyria, the mother, son, like I told y'all. If Mary gave birth to God, because that is what the Christian Catholic doctrine establishes, then Mary is the mother of God, but at the same time is the wife of God, because God had a wife, or in this case, Yahweh had a wife. But the Catholic Church or Christianity made that, they embedded it, but they just didn't come up with it and said, here. They came from the times of Egypt. Like I've been reading and showing to y'all these this scheme has been woven into the religions, a bunch of religions, Buddhists, I mean, we read Arabs, the Indians, they all have similarities of the Catholic Christian dogma or religion, whatever. Okay, the study of the scriptures doesn't show that. It shows that Yahweh had a wife, but it doesn't say that Yeshua was Yahweh in the flesh, because that is a Egyptian trinity that has been embedded in the book of John, and to make unstudied people think that it was talking about the Trinity when the word Trinity is not even mentioned in there at all. So when I watched that video, I was like, okay, I know where to draw the line between truth or fiction and truth. Okay, but like I said, if y'all don't do this kind of studying, this kind of reading, you're gonna believe anything and everything people tell you. Okay, so the Catholic Christian religion is just that. It's just man-made with all these theories behind it, all this mythology behind it. I mean, I even have a book. I was showing it to my mom the other night. It's got a lot of those images, with the Cupid, with the heart like that, and the mom or the feminine, statue like that or whatever. I think in this book or in someone that I read, and I don't like saying this in my videos, but that is also a sexual symbol, the arrow, because it does represent the male phallus. Okay. But anyways, and the other book that I do have on Valentine's, I think it is, it tells of the relationship between the mother and the son. That's a big no-no in the scriptures. Okay, so even if it was a fact, that would totally contradict what's written in the laws of Moses, because it prohibits that. Okay? Like I said, people, you can't, I don't know if I told y'all this, y'all can't agree or disagree with what you don't know unless you read it for yourself. Okay, so whenever I watch videos like that, I'm like, okay, I know where they're getting that from already. They're getting it from ancient Egypt and Assyria and Phoenicia and all these other countries. Okay, people watch videos and say, that's not true, without even doing any real research. But like I said, a lot of the times what y'all were taught, and then when you go to the scriptures, you're going to disagree with the scriptures because it goes against what you were originally taught by your priest at your church. But the scriptures speak truth, and mostly when you've been taught by a guy that's not even holding his Bible in front of you, you're going to believe whatever he tells you because, well, he's a priest. But that's exactly what even this book says, that the people were believing the popes because they brainwashed the people into believing that only they could interpret the Bible. Yahweh is the author of his word. He is not the author of confusion, only therefore he can interpret. That is made clear in Genesis and in the book of Daniel. Because Daniel even told Nebuchadnezzar that Yahweh is the one who interprets these things. Okay? So, anyways, I had a comment in my video last night. The guy said, why are you wearing that flag on your crown if it represents Babylon? It's just a cap. To me, it's just a cap. I bought it because it's green. Green is one of my favorite colors. And that's it. I mean, I'm not proud to be an American, because like even Carlos Mencia said, I do not apologize for what my country has done to become great. And even so now it's dwindling. We're actually now in the last days in the decline of this civilization. Man, it's just terrible. I am not proud to be an American. I'm an American by birth, and then by choice, if that makes any sense. Okay, I live here. I know people, the white man want to say, well, if you don't like it, you can always go back to Mexico. I was born here. I don't have to go anywhere. Why don't you leave? I mean, we can always go back to history and say, hey, you guys crossed the ocean. My people may have crossed the river, but you guys crossed oceans and came over here legally and took the land from the natives. I mean, but I have no reason to argue that kind of stuff, because even I have said myself, a lot of the history is wrong. Okay, it is what it is, people. I'm staying here. I cannot go anywhere. I don't want to go anywhere. I'm staying here. Okay, and if you white people don't like it, that's just tough poo-poo. Okay, but at least I'm not a proud, ignorant American in a Christian belief. Okay, it's all bogus. Okay, the Christian belief, like I stated, without trying to sound racist, is the white man's religion, because the facts prove it. Mormonism, like I've shown y'all, they worship the white man, the white God with the white beard. Okay, it is what it is, people. Okay, the studies that I have allow any and everybody of any race, color, ethnic background, whatever. Okay, but this is where I did with my teachings. I do not like using colors to describe people, but I use them only solely and to make my points. Okay. So anyways, so yeah, people, the ignorance of people really upsets me. You know, it frustrates me that people over the years have become proud in their own ignorance. I mean, it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. I have a lot more knowledge now than even what most historical scholars might think they have. Obviously, they're still putting up these videos. They still can't put the difference between fiction and truth. Okay, they did say it was a fabrication, but they didn't know how to explain to that guy on the national channel where these things even came from. Okay, so they only gave him, well, yeah, it's been fabricated. It has. Okay, Christian is a fabrication of Catholicism, which is also a fabrication of mythology and idolatry and God worship from Egypt. It is a fact. It is a fact. Okay. Wow, it took almost 10 minutes. But anyways, all right. In continuation here from the two Babylons, chapter 2, objects of worship, we are still under the section of, man, I already got this book all written up. Wow. Under the child in Assyria. It's crazy. Again, people, I wear my cap because I don't even comb my hair, but green is my favorite color. This is just a cap. Doesn't mean anything to me, okay? Let's see. Matter of fact, I have my picture on my Facebook with the Mexican flag anyways. All right. To this mode of representing the mighty kings of Babylon and Assyria, who imitated Nimrod and his successors, there is manifest allusion in Isaiah 8:6-8. It says, "For as much as the people refuses the waters of Shiloah that go softly and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, now therefore behold, the Lord bringeth up upon them the waters of the river, strong and mighty, even the king of Assyria, and all his glory, and he shall come up over all his banks. And he shall pass through Judah, he shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even unto the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel." Okay, this is symbology, people. I mean, even this book mentions a lot of it, because they'll make one point and then they go back, very minutely though, they go back saying, well, it could mean this because of the poet's language, the prophetical language, as we even read in here earlier. Or not earlier, but earlier in the videos, earlier in this book. Okay, but because of man's carnal imagination, like we see a lot of biblical symbology in like the Lord of the Rings, where the wings of great birds, I mean, I love watching those movies, but these birds came and swooped them away from the top of the towers, whatever. But even in the book of Revelation, we read of the wings of a great eagle. Could mean a plane, right? So when reading this stuff, you have to like literally study it and study it and study to know where to put the differences between real and symbology and or spiritual. I highly recommend y'all read some Corinthians, as a matter of fact. First Corinthians chapter 2, about learning to ask for the spiritual gifts and to make differences between the spiritual and the literal, or the spiritual from the spiritual. Okay, and I really believe that Yahweh has given me this hindsight or foresight to put differences in all these things. Praise Yahweh. All right, so it says, when we look at such figures with their great extent of expanded wing as symbolizing, there you go, an Assyrian king, what a vividness and force does it give to the inspired language of the prophet. There you go. I'm gonna mark this. I mean, because look at Daniel. He spoke in you see, the language back then is not really, I mean, it's kind of close, but the meaning rather, the context of Hebrew to English is very distinct. It's very different, but at the same time, even today we use words like beast. Man, that guy's a beast. Or man, she's a beast. She can bench press 500 pounds. Those are the words that are being used in the book of Revelation. It's just that they're mighty in strength, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so it has that very symbolic meaning to which I have referred, the overspreading of the land by his mighty ones, or hosts of armed men, that the king of Babylon was to bring with him in his overflowing invasion. The knowledge of the way in which the Assyrian monarchs were represented and of the meaning of that representation gives additional force to the story of the dream of Cyrus the Great as told by Herodotus. Cyrus says the historian dreamt that he saw the son of one of his princes, who was at the time in a distant province, with two great wings on his shoulders, the one of which overshadowed Asia, or Asia, and the other Europe, from which he immediately concluded that he was organizing rebellion against him. The symbols of the Babylonians, whose capital Cyrus had taken, and to those power he had succeeded, were entirely familiar to him. And if the wings were the symbols of sovereign power, and the possession of them implied the lordship over the might or the armies of the empire, it is easy to see how very naturally any suspicions of disloyalty affecting the individual in question might take shape in the manner related in the dreams of him who might harbor the suspicious. Wow, that takes education to write a sentence that long. Wow, that's crazy. So again, this guy made it clear the symbology and the prophetic language of the prophet, as well as we have the symbology of the poet. Now the C.G. Jung or C.J. Jung makes also that very clear, and I have one of his books. It's called The Transformation of Symbolism. That takes a little bit of study as well. You know, you can't just pick up the Bible and understand it. It doesn't work that way. So I can't just pick up a book by like Shakespeare and start understanding it. That guy, I mean, he was a great poet supposedly. So he, I don't know if it was he or he copied somebody else's using that iambic pentameter and all this kind of stuff, whatever. But nowadays, that's how a lot of books are written today. You know, they cover one little section in one paragraph, make a simple statement, and then cover another paragraph, I guess in the same sense, but whatever. But yeah, we can't just start picking up the Bible and say, well, I don't understand it. You're not going to understand it on the first try. It takes a lot of study. It takes fasting, like I told y'all. And again, if you're just picking up the Bible for the first time, even though you have a year, you watch videos like this and you read books like this and you watch other biblical videos, you can't just agree or disagree. Now, obviously, the more obvious things about like the Sabbath worship is on like today on the seventh day as opposed to the first Sunday, that you can disagree. Okay, because like I stated, even people have been leaving their churches because they're not being taught anything, and or they're going against what they've already seen in their own Bibles and or through other videos here on YouTube or Facebook saying, hey, no, that's not the Sabbath, it's Saturday. So they get offended and they leave. I know I did, and I have not gone back in 15 years to any church. Now, the understanding of this equivocal sense of Baal Averin can alone explain the remarkable statement of Aristophanes that at the beginning of the world, the birds were first created, and then after the creation came the race of the blessed immortal gods. This has been regarded as either an atheistical or nonsensical utterance on the part of the poet, but with the true key applied to the language, it is found to contain an important historical fact. Let it only be borne in mind that the birds, that is, the winged ones, symbolize the lords of the mighty ones. And then the meaning is clear that men first began to be mighty on the earth, and then that the lords or leaders of these mighty ones were deified. The knowledge of the mystic sense of this symbol accounts also for the origin of the story of Perseus, the son of Jupiter, miraculously born of Danae, who did such wondrous things and who passed from country to country on wings divinely bestowed on him. This equally casts light on the symbolic myths in regard to Bellerophon and the feats which he performed on his winged horse and their ultimately disastrous issue, how high he mounted in the air and how terrible was his fall, and of Icarus, the son of Daedalus, who flying on wet cemented wings over the Icarian Sea, had his wings melted off through his too near approach to the sun, and so gave his name to the sea where he's supposed to have fallen, the Icarian Sea, or Icarian Sea. The fables are referred to those who trod or were supposed to have trodden in the steps of Nimrod, the first lord of the mighty ones, and who in that character was symbolized as equipped with wings. Like I said, the symbology, in one of Ellen G. White's books that I read while I was still in the feds, she used wings, more wings, the faster that kingdom was established. But still, these were the mighty ones. Like Nimrod began to be a mighty one in the earth. Doesn't mean he had wings on him, but just the fact that is what, like royalty, we have lions that represent loyalty. It does not mean there's a lion sitting there on that throne with a crown. Okay. So we cannot take a lot of these things for granted, that because they were birds, they necessarily had wings, or because they had wings, they were birds rather. Okay. Now, it is remarkable that in the passage of Aristophanes already referred to that speaks of the birds or the winged ones, Being produced before the gods, we are informed that he from whom both the mighty ones and gods derived their origin was none other than the winged boy Cupid. Crazy, huh? Cupid, the son of Venus, occupied all with us as well, afterwards be proved in the mystic mythology the very same position as Nin or Ninus, the sun, did to Rhea, the mother of the gods, as Nimrod was unquestionably the first of the mighty ones after the flood. His statement of Aristophanes that the boy god Cupid himself, a winged one, produced all the birds or winged ones, while occupying the very position of Nin or Ninus, the sun, shows that in this respect also Ninus and Nimrod are identified. While this is the evident meaning of the poet, this also in a strictly historical point of view is the conclusion of the historian Apollodorus, for he states that Ninus is Nimrod, and then in conformity with this identity of Ninus and Nimrod, we find in one of the most celebrated sculptures of ancient Babylon, Ninus and his wife Semiramis represented as actively engaged in the pursuits of the chase, the quiver bearing Semiramis being a fit companion for the mighty hunter before the Lord. It doesn't say Nimrod was the first mighty one, it just says that he began to be a mighty one. If you look over in Genesis 10, let's see. It says Cush begot Nimrod. Genesis 10:8. Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one on the earth. He was a tyrant who deceived, who turned against Yahweh. Therefore it is said, like Nimrod, the tyrant who deceived, who turned against Yahweh. Adam and Eve first turned against Yahweh. They disobeyed his commandments into not eating the tree of righteousness and evil. So they became as the gods. Okay. So again, people, get that out of your heads that angels were having sex with women. All right. This next section is called Ala Mahozim. Alamahozim. Ala Mahozim. The name Ala Mahozim is never, as far as I know, found in any ancient uninspired author, and in the scriptures itself is found only in a prophecy. Considering that the design of prophecy is always to leave a certain obscurity before the event, though giving enough of light for the practical guidance of the upright, it is not to be wondered at that an unusual word should be employed to describe the divinity in question. But though this precise name be not found, we have a synonym that can be traced home to Nimrod. In Sanku Niathan, Astarte, traveling about the habitable world, is said to have found a star falling through the air, which he took upon and consecrated in the holy island Tyre. It's just crazy how Astarte is being mentioned here with a falling star. Now what is the story of the falling star but just another version of the fall of the Musaber or Mokaber from heaven, or of Nimrod from his high estate? For as we have already seen, Macrobius shows Saturn that the story of Adonis, the lamented one, Adonis here is being compared to Tammuz. So favorite a theme in Phoenicia originally came from Assyria. The name of the great god in the holy island of Tyre, as is well known, was Melkart. But this name is brought from Tyre to Carthage, and from thence to Malta, which was colonized from Carthage, where it is found on a monument at this day, casts no little light on the subject. The name Melkart, is thought by some to have been derived from Melek Eretz, or king of the earth. This is, but the way in which it is sculptured in Malta shows what it was really Melekart, king of the walled city. Kir, K-I-R, the same as the Welsh Caer, found in Caer Narvon, and etc. and signifies an encompassing wall or a city completely walled around. And Cart was the feminine form of the same word, as may be seen in the different forms of the name Carthage, which is sometimes Carchedon and sometimes Carthada or Carthago. In the book of Proverbs, we find a slightly variety of the feminine form of cart, which seems evidently used in the sense of a bulwark or a fortification. Thus, we read in Proverbs 10:15, a rich man's wealth is his strong city, karit, that is his strong bulwark or defense. Melk Kart, then king of the walled city, conveys the very same idea as Ala Mahozim. In Gruder's inscriptions, as quoted by Bryant, we find a title also given to Mars, the Roman war god, exactly coincident in meaning with that of Melkart. I'm thinking about that verse in Daniel that I quoted yesterday. I think it was chapter 11. We have elsewhere seen abundant reason to conclude that the original of Mars was Nimrod. The title to which I refer confirms this conclusion and is contained in a Roman inscription on an ancient temple in Spain. This title shows that the temple was dedicated to Mars Kir Aden, the lord of the Kir, or walled city. The Roman C, the letter C, as is well known, is hard like K, like Chaldeans, and Adon, Lord, is also Aden, A-D-E-N, or Aden. Now, with this clue to guide us, we can unravel at once what has hitherto greatly puzzled mythologists in regard to the name of Mars, Quirinus, as distinguished from Mars Gradivus. The K in Kir, K-I-R, is what in Hebrew or Chaldee is called Koph, K-O-P-H, a different letter from Cape, K-A-P-E, and is frequently pronounced as a Q, Quirinus. Therefore signifies belonging to the 93 walled city and refers to the security which was given to cities by encompassing walls. Gradivus, on the other hand, comes from gra, conflict, and divus, or God, a different form of Deus, D-E-U-S, which has been already shown to be a Chaldee term, not a Hebrew term, and therefore signifies God of battle. Ooh. I'm gonna note this. Daniel 11. Both these titles exactly answer to the two characters of Nimrod as the great city builder and the great warrior, and that both these distinctive characters were set forth by the two names referred to. We have distinct evidence in Fussus Antiquities. The Romans, says he, worshipped two idols of the kind that is gods under the name of Mars. The one called Quirinus, the guardian of the city and its peace, the other called Gradivus, greedy of war and slaughter, whose temple stood beyond the city's boundaries. Wow, that's crazy. A lot of this stuff is making sense now, and it's leading me to the prophecies in Daniel 11, where this guy that comes up is gonna go against or use the god of fortifications or whatever. Let's see. He will neither regard the gods of his brothers nor the god desired by women, Tammuz. Against all the gods he will act without regard, for he will magnify himself above all. But in his estate he will honor the gods of wars and gods unknown to his fathers. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. Here it just signifies God of battle. All right, next section. This next section is section 2, the child in Egypt. Oh, great timing, got another half hour. All right. When we turn to Egypt, we find remarkable evidence of the same thing there also. Justin Also, as we have already seen, says that Ninus subdued all nations as far as Libya and consequently Egypt. I guess for something like this, it would take a real in-depth study and finding out who these modern counterparts are to all these countries or cities, whatever. That'd be a lot of work. The statement of Diodorus Siculus is to the same effect, Egypt being one of the countries that, according to him, Ninus brought into subjection to himself. In exact accordance with these historical statements, we find that the name of the third person in the primeval triad of Egypt was Khons, Khons. But Khons in Egypt comes from a word that signifies to chase. That's what you do for a Khan, huh? You chase him. Therefore, the name of Khons, the son of Maut, the goddess mother, who was adorned in such a way as to identify her with Rhea, the great goddess mother of Chaldea, properly signifies the huntsman or god of the chase. That's a great point, right? The huntsman. We see the huntsman. Nimrod was a hunter of men's souls. And also we see in Revelation 6:2 the guy with the bow. See how that is the same continuation of the Nimrod system. Not Nimrod himself per se, but the same acts of rebellion and going against, because that's what Nimrod means, is rebel, but in rebellion against Yahweh. Okay. As Khan stands in the very same relation to the Egyptian Maut as Ninus does to Rhea, how does this title of the huntsman identify the Egyptian god with Nimrod? Now this very name Khons, brought into contact with the Roman mythology, not only explains the meaning of a name and the pantheon there that hitherto has stood greatly in need of explanation, but causes that name, when explained, to reflect light back again on this Egyptian divinity and to strengthen the conclusion already arrived at. The name to which I refer is the name of the Latin god Consus, C-O-N-S-U-S, who was in one aspect identified with Neptune, but who was also regarded as the god of hidden counsels. This could also be Saturn or Satur, the hidden one, or the concealer of secrets. See how all that stuff, that to me, it all fits in. But like I said, it's pretty much any male deity being referred to here, it's all the same one, just called different things in different countries. Just like if you saw my videos on the Queen of Heaven, Mary, not the actual Miriam, the mother of the Messiah, but the title of Mary has been used in different countries as the Madonna, the Lady on the Rocks, and well, I forgot all these, but I'm sure they'll find them in here. But she was called, the pagan goddess was worshipped and called different names in different countries. The concealer of secrets, who was looked upon as to the patron of horsemanship and was said to have produced the horse. The horse. Who could be the god of hidden counsels or the concealer of secrets but Saturn? The god of the mysteries, and whose name as used at Rome signified the hidden one. I think in the book of Acts, one of the apostles mentions the unknown God, which probably has to do with this guy anyways. The father of Khons, or Ahonso as he was also called, that is Amaun, M-A-O-U-N. It sounds a lot like Amen, A-M-E-N. Amen is a pagan god, people, for you Christians who use that word a lot. Was, as we are told by Plutarch, known as the hidden god. And as father, and Amen is an Egyptian god. As father and son in the same triad, we have the same triad, have ordinarily a correspondence of character. This shows that Khons also must have been known in the very same character of Saturn, the hidden one. If the Latin Consus then does exactly agree with the Egyptian Khons as the god of the mysteries or hidden counsels, can there be a doubt that Khons the huntsman also agree with the Roman divinity as the supposed producer of the horse? What horse? I'm gonna find that out. Who's so likely to get the credit of producing the horse as the great huntsman of Babel? Nimrod. There you go. Who no doubt enlisted in its toils of the chase, and by this means must have been signally aided in his conflicts with the wild beasts of the forest. In this connection, let the reader call to mind that fabulous creature of the centaur, half man, half horse. That's the same representation of Sagittarius, right? Half man, half horse, that figures so much in the mythology of Greece. That imaginary creation, as is generally admitted, was intended to commemorate the man who first taught the art of horsemanship. Yeah, I like that. I guess that's the horse, the centaur, half man, half horse. But I think that's what the Greeks called them. And then we have, of course, the Sagittarius. I don't know what, or something like that. I don't want to get you guys mixed up, but the same creature. But that creation was not the offspring of Greek fancy. Here, as in many other things, the Greeks have only borrowed from an earlier source. There you go. The centaur is found on coins struck in Babylonia, showing that the idea must have originally come from the quarter. The centaur is found in the zodiac, the antiquity of which goes up to a high period and which had its origin in Babylon. The centaur was represented, as we are expressly assured, by Berosus, the Babylonian historian in the Temple of Babylon, and his language would seem to show that so also it had been in primeval times. The Greeks did themselves admit this antiquity and derivation of the centaur, for though Ixion was commonly represented as the father of the centaurs, yet they also acknowledged that the primitive Centaurus was the same as Kronos or Saturn, the father of the gods. Lucifer is the god of gods. But we have seen that Kronos was the first king of Babylon, or Nimrod, but it's just kind of crazy how there's no feminine relation to the god of gods. I can't remember reading one yet. But we have seen that Kronos was the first king of Babylon, or Nimrod. Consequently, the first centaur was the same. Now, the way in which the centaur was represented on the Babylonian coins and in the zodiac viewed in this light is very striking. The centaur was the same as the sign Sagittarius, or the archer. If the founder of Babylon's glory was the mighty hunter, Nimrod, whose name even in the days of Moses was a proverb, Genesis 10:9, wherefore it is even said, that's Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. Now here, notice what it said. I don't know which version is being quoted here. Let's find out. Genesis 10:9, King James Version. I know what it says in the book of Yahweh, but here in the book of the King James, it says he was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. You'd have to look up that word before in Hebrews. I'm sorry, I'm kind of a little bit jittery. I need to take my medication. But in the, I read it earlier to you, it says against Yahweh. Okay. But that by itself doesn't make any sense. Before the Lord, like before he came, in other words, or before him in his sight, in other words. But he was, even in the earlier scripture, says that he was against Yahweh. Okay, of course, in your version, it might read against God or whatever. But anyways, so it says, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, when we find the archer with his bow and arrow and the symbol of the supreme Babylonian divinity, and the archer among the signs of the zodiac that originated in Babylon, I think we may safely conclude that this man-horse or horseman archer primarily referred to him and was intended to perpetuate the memory of at once of his fame as a huntsman and his skill as a horse breaker. Now, when we thus compared the Egyptian Khans, the huntsman, with the Latin Consus, the god of horse races who produced the horse, and the centaur Babylon, to whom was attributed the honor of being the author of horsemanship, while we see how all the lines converge in Babylon, it will be very clear, I think, whence the primitive Egyptian god Khans has been derived. We may not see the exact same Egyptian hieroglyphical symbols throughout, Christian religion today, but I know for a fact that the bird represents Horus in the Egyptian hieroglyphs, and or it could also mean the phoenix, the rising phoenix, as we have the, I don't know exactly which bird was used in the original phoenix image, but we have the same phoenix imagery in what we have here in the seal of the United States, the eagle. Okay. So I said, people, they may not be the exact same Egyptian hieroglyphs, but it's the same imagery as far as a winged bird goes. Okay. And no, they're not aliens. Now, when we thus compare the Egyptian Khans, the huntsman, okay, we already covered that part. Khons, Khons, the son of the great goddess mother, seems to have been generally represented as a full-grown god. The Babylonian divinity was also represented very frequently in Egypt in the very same way as in the land of his nativity, that is, as a child in his mother's arms. Oh. This was the way in which Osiris, the son, the husband of his mother, that's what I was telling you earlier, was often exhibited, and what we learn of this god, equally as in the case of Khans, shows that in his original he was none other than Nimrod. This is the same imagery, people, we see in the Catholic Christian imagery of Mary and baby Jesus. That is where they got this from this Nimrod system, which Egypt is part of. Everything that is Nimrod is God worship, has images in their beliefs, idolatry, statues, gods made of stone, wood, and gold, and bronze, and brass, you name it. Okay. Like I said, the imagery may not be the exact same, but it's still there in its original form. Was often exhibited, and what we learn of this god, equally as in the case of Khans, shows that in his original he was none other than Nimrod. Okay. It is admitted that the secret system of Freemasonry was originally founded on the mysteries of the Egyptian Isis, the goddess mother or wife of Osiris. There you go, people. I'm going to highlight this part. But what could have led to the union of a Masonic body with these mysteries had they not had particular reference to architecture, and had the god who was worshipped in them not been celebrated for his success in perfecting the arts of fortification and building? Ooh, there's that word again, fortification. The arts of fortification and building. Maybe it's Joseph Smith, as the Bible's mentioning. He was a Freemason. Now, as such were the case, considering the relation in which, as we have already seen, Egypt stood to Babylon, who would naturally be looked up to there as the great patron of the Masonic art. The strong presumption is that Nimrod must have been the man. He was the first that gained fame in this way. As the child of the Babylonian goddess mother, he was worshipped, as we have seen, in the character of Allah Mahozim, the god or fortifications. There it is, people. So what I'm starting to think now, let's look up this guy. Something's clicking already. Allah Mahozim has to be plural, I'm thinking. Mother goddess, god of forces. Daniel 11:38 is mentioned here. Wow. Cool. Okay. In case y'all didn't know, and in case I haven't mentioned it, I don't think I have, is that Lucifer, Satan, has both gender, characteristics, attributes, whatever. Okay. That isn't the way she deceives for the most part. Okay. Osiris, in like manner, the child of the Egyptian Madonna, was equally celebrated as the strong chief of the buildings. This strong chief of the buildings was originally worshipped in Egypt with every physical characteristic of Nimrod. I have already noticed the fact that Nimrod, as the son of Cush, was a Negro, a black man. Now, there was a tradition in Egypt. I mean, I don't know if that's a fact. I mean, like I said, Nimrod wasn't just a one-man army. It was just the fact that Cush, like I said, I think Cush is the main character because he begot something that rebels. But it does say he was a mighty one before against Yahweh. But like I said, this kind of stuff takes an in-depth study, you know. Now, therefore, was a tradition in Egypt recorded by Plutarch that Osiris was black, which in a land where the general complexion was dusky, must have implied something more than ordinary in its darkness. I guess in the spiritual sense, since the word gives light and sin gives the darkness, so to speak, and that Nimrod represents all sin. But we have unequivocal evidence that Osiris, the son and husband of the great goddess Queen of Egypt, was also represented as a veritable Negro. In Wilkinson may be found a representation of him with the unmistakable features of the genuine Cushite or Negro. Bunsen would have it that this is a mere random importation from some of the barbaric tribes, but the dress in which this Negro god is arrayed tells a different tale. That dress directly connects him with Nimrod. This Negro featured Osiris is clothed from head to foot in a spotted dress, the upper part being a leopard skin, the underpart also being spotted to correspond with it. Now the name Nimrod signifies the subduer of the leopard. It's starting to make more and more sense. My studies, like I said, I covered a wide range of stuff. Like we have here, like it says in this book, it says the two Babylons or the papal worship proved to be the worship of Nimrod. Okay, now if this is saying that Negro was Nimrod, that Nimrod was a black man per se or a Negro, then it might be of no coincidence that Rome has the black pope. He may not necessarily be dark skinned, but they have that as one of the popes. And here, I don't know what year this was, but it says who is considered the black pope. Meeting last week in Rome, Jesuit delegates kept the tradition intact, elected the very Reverend Pedro Arupe, 57, Spanish-born Jesuit provincial area chief of Japan, to be the order's 28th leader and the Roman Catholic Church's new black pope. I don't know if that's got anything to do with it, but it is obvious to see that this whole scheme has been brought forth through the Catholic Church. And yeah, all they've ever done is rebel against Yahweh because they are in fact connected to this Nimrod system. Man, it's crazy. About 10 minutes. Perfect. This name seems to imply that his Nimrod had gained fame by subduing the horse and so making use of it in the chase. So his fame as a huntsman rested mainly on this, that he found out the art of making the leopard aid him in hunting the other wild beasts. A particular kind of tame leopard is used in India at this day for hunting, and of Bagajet the first, the Mughal emperor of India, it is recorded that in his hunting establishment he had not only wounds of various breeds, let me read that again. A particular kind of tame leopard is used in India at this day for hunting, and of Bagajet I, the Mughal emperor of India, it is recorded that in his hunting establishment he had not only hounds of various breeds, but leopards also, whose collars were set with jewels. Upon the words of the prophet Habakkuk 1:8, swifter than leopards. Quito has the following remarks. The swiftness of the leopard is proverbial in all countries where it is found. This, conjoined with its other qualities, suggested the idea in the East of partially training it that it might be employed in hunting. Leopards are now rarely kept for hunting in Western Asia, unless by kings and governors, but they are more common in the eastern parts of Asia. Orosius relates that one was sent by the king of Portugal to the Pope, which excited great astonishment by the way in which it overtook and the facility with which it killed deer and wild boars. Le Bruyne mentions a leopard kept by the Pasha who governed Gaza and the other territories of the ancient Philistines, and which he frequently employed in hunting jackals. But it is in India that the cheetah, or hunting leopard, is most frequently employed and is seen in the perfection of his power. This custom of taming the leopard and pressing it into the service of man in this way is traced up to the earliest times of primitive antiquity. In the works of Sir William Jones, we find it stated from the Persian legends that Hoshang, the father of Tammuz, who built Babylon, was the first who bred dogs and leopards for hunting. As Tammuz, who built Babylon, could be none other than Nimrod, this legend only attributes to his father what, as his name imports, he got the fame of doing himself. Now, as the classic god bearing the lion's skin is recognized by that sign as Hercules, the slayer of the Nemean lion, so in like manner, the god clothed in the leopard's skin would naturally be marked out as Nimrod, the leopard subduer. That this leopard skin, as appertaining to the Egyptian god, was no occasional thing, we have clearest evidence. Wilkinson tells us that on all high occasions when the Egyptian high priest was called to officiate, it was indispensable that he should do so wearing as his robe of office the leopard skin. Wow, it's crazy. As it is a universal principle in all idolatries that the high priest wears the insignia of the god he serves, this indicates the importance which the spotted skin must have had attached to it as a symbol of the god himself. The ordinary way in which the favorite Egyptian divinity Osiris was mystically represented was under the form of a young bull or calf. The calf Apis, where we get happy from which the golden calf of the Israelites was borrowed, there was a reason why that calf should not commonly appear in the appropriate symbols of the god he represented, for that calf represented the divinity in the character of Saturn, the hidden one, Apis being only another name for Saturn. I'll buy that. The cow of Hathor, Athor, however, the female divinity corresponding to Apis, is well known as a spotted cow, and it is singular that the Druids of Britain also worship a spotted cow. This is from Davies's Druids. Rare though it be, however, to find an instance of the deified calf or young bull represented with the spots, there is evidence still in existence that even in sometimes was so represented. When we find that Osiris, the grand god of Egypt, under different forms was thus arrayed in a leopard skin or spotted dress, and that the leopard skin dress was so indispensable a part of the sacred robes of high priest, we may be sure that there was a deep meaning in such a costume. And what could that meaning be? Just to identify Osiris with the Babylonian god, who was celebrated as the leopard tamer and who was worshipped even as he was as Ninus, the child in his mother's arms. So people, we see that this stuff is just being borrowed and or just taken, uh, but being named in their language as such. Okay, uh, I need to take my medication already. But again, as we can see, this stuff, where it originates from, this stuff is actually making more sense to me now on the God of Fortifications. See, people, the more you read, the more you find out. Knowledge is power. Okay, again, all this God worship, all this idolatry stems from the Nimrod system. Okay, it's all pointing back to Nimrod. It's all just going back to Nimrod. All this stuff, I mean, not per se he necessarily or they necessarily, the system created all these things, just eventually started coming out. And as the people grew and spread out, those same people who spread out or scattered abroad just took what they could and made their own gods and named them as such per se. Okay, those kind of allegations can be made because this is a bunch of crap anyways. It's a bunch of fabricated idolatry in the minds of the people. Okay, so there's nothing wrong that could be said, but I know a lot of people still, they want to hold on to Christianity as a true faith, but the true faith of Nimrod maybe, but not of the scriptures. Okay, again, people, if y'all don't have this book, like I said, I'm not even halfway, but I'm going to cover all in all these videos, okay, as long as it takes. Like I said, I'm not doing much right now, and I am looking already at surgery. My attorney is waiting for the confirmation, so I'm going to try and get out as much of these videos as I can so y'all can have enough to hear. Y'all have the audio version of the two Babylons now, and make your notes and whatever. And like I said, comment section is open, so leave questions and comments or whatever you want. If you make another comment, whoever that is, that I forgot your name already, I'm just gonna block you. Okay, people, like I said, this is just a cat. I like it. Green is my favorite color. I'm not proud to be an American, blah blah blah, but I live here. I was born here, so got no choice. I do have a choice, but I want to stay here. Okay, so anyways, hope these help. Like I said, if y'all leave any questions or comments, and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. And I will make another video. Y'all have a great day.